to, ready or not, the mainstream. This is our 5th anniversary of our inaugural conference, NatCon 1, held in Washington in July 2019. Since then, we have convened in Orlando and Miami, London, Rome, and Brussels. At the notorious NatCon Brussels this past April, the local authorities, left-wing progressives, this is not, a bunch of left-wing progressives tried to ban our meeting by decree. They sent in a tactical police squadron to enforce the decree. I'm delighted to announce that this week, back in the USA, the authorities have made no effort to prohibit us either by lawfare or armed force. However, under their defund the police policies, I'm not sure they could, even if they tried. When national conservatism first appeared, many thought it outre and a bit scary. We favored sovereign nations with borders. We thought national governments should promote the welfare of all of their citizens, including working-class hinterlanders and minorities, not just transnational ruling elites. We wanted government to be actively concerned with maintaining a healthy culture and a strong society. We thought life was full of real constraints that could not be wished away, such as those of human biology, physical resources, and spending budgets. Many of us prayed and studied the Bible. Who were these people anyway? Why were they so agitated and disruptive? Where did they get their funding and their chutzpah? Were they an intellectual salon, a political movement, a dark money conspiracy? Some greeted the NatCon apparition with derision and contempt, others with instinctive recognition and sincere curiosity. Now, 5 years on, our purposes and precepts have gained traction in intellectual circles and success in voting booths across the United States and Europe. I contend that national conservatism has become mainstream, MSNC. For example, last summer, a group of conservatives and libertarians released a Freedom Conservatism Statement of Principles. It was billed as a bold challenge to our National Conservatism Statement of Principles. Its organizer said that it was issued because the NatCons proposed to turn America into an authoritarian white ethno-state. His words, which he repeated for emphasis. But the Freedom Conservatism Statement itself was totally insipid and anodyne. After a few days of puffery, it disappeared without a trace. In contrast, the National Conservatism Statement has been endlessly parsed and robustly criticized and defended and extended, moving debates forward on many deep and urgent questions. The Claremont Review has just featured an intense 18-page symposium, and those are really big pages. The left, too, has been whiffing. When the Brussels City Fathers attempted to shut us down, they said it was because we were a hate group that threatened public safety. Their actions were universally condemned and their reasons ridiculed. Writing in the Free Press, Oliver Weissman said that the only time he'd felt unsafe at a NatCon conference was at a session on common good conservatism where he feared he might die of boredom. That was a panel with Hadley Arcus, Janice Rogers Brown, Josh Hammer, and John Yoo, so he must have been joking. His point, I think, was that treating earnest argument as a threat to safety is not just illiberal and anti-democratic, but it is ignorant and futile. And we had a thrilling, inspiring conference, all of it posted on our website, which we hope to build on this week. Yet, the Belgian progressives were right to regard our ideas, as threats to safety, to the safety of their own political juggernaut, which they had thought unstoppable. National conservative parties and politicians have been making impressive gains in European and American elections, and in India, well represented at this conference and elsewhere. April in Brussels was a minor skirmish in an elite effort to forestall further conservative advances in looming EU and national elections. Their efforts failed, just as similar efforts are now failing in the United States. Across both continents, left-wing parties are showing their teeth, and the conceit of a progressive arc of history is in the dustbin. Establishment conservatives are reluctantly collaborating with populist party crashers, and those that don't, like Britain's Tories, are also off to the dustbin. The evolution of name-calling is amusing. The media no longer calls us fascists and skinheads and has retreated in unison to the term far-right, as in far-right Viktor Orban, the most popular and influential head of government in Eastern Europe, and far-right Giorgia Meloni, the most popular and influential head of government in Western Europe. Leaders who champion strict immigration controls, abundant, affordable energy, an end to civil violence and anti-Semitism, a strong economic safety net, patriotic schooling, and a revival of faith, family, and fertility are not far right. They are the new mainstream. The occasion of our ascendance is not a happy one. We saw when others were dithering that progressive ideology was not a passing fad, but a powerful, well-organized force whose policies would devastate our societies, economies, and politics. Now the devastation is evident to all with eyes to see. But NatCons have risen to the occasion. We spied a political opening in the new class divide between grounded citizens and their woke overlords in government, corporations, and universities. The Republican Party is now a working-class party attracting growing numbers of Black and Latino voters. Our efforts to reinstate nationhood, tradition, and piety have been picked apart in the journals, but have resonated in the world beyond. We have ferreted out many horrible abuses and corruptions, from rigging social media to transgendering school children, and used them to illustrate larger problems and threats and possible paths to recovery. As a pro-market NatCon, I've made it a point of invoking an economic principle at each of our conferences. This time, it is the admonition of the investment advisors. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. That some of us have entered mainstream politics means that we are going to win some and lose some, form opportunistic coalitions, negotiate and compromise, bow to public opinion, and make hard choices amid fogs of uncertainty. And that will present some hard decisions, some hard choices to those of us on the outside. We got to this point by sticking with principles that seemed unpopular and inexpedient at the time. It is often hard to tell from the outside whether a political compromise is brilliant, prudent, a feint, or a surrender. The will to power is a central feature of human nature, as the Democrats are now reminding us yet again, and conservatives are hardly immune. Moreover, the practices of old-style politics may have lost some of their traction in an age of managerial government and cultural decadence. The political and bureaucratic elites of Washington and Brussels have been remarkably indifferent to the rise of popular opposition. For all of their talk about populist threats to democracy, they seem to regard elections as mere nuisances, easy to manage around. I think they are overplaying their hand. but they are smart people with cards left to play and tricks up their sleeves. Our atomized, feminized, self-absorbed culture, where individual autonomy is the holy grail, is not a progressive invention, but it is highly advantageous to those who would replace nation and community with homogenizing diktats. Perhaps the arc of history is being supplanted by an arc of technocracy, this one an actual arc, calling for new forms of activism. One thing clear is that in our new circumstances, ideas will need to be married to ideas and organization. NatCon Brussels did not succeed through press releases and op-eds and lawsuits, important as those were. It succeeded because our leaders, Yoram Hazani, Anna Welitz, and Rafa Ice, spent 4 sleepless days in guerrilla action, outfoxing the authorities, sneaking in at one point a cardinal, a princess, and an MP through a garbage dump in the back while the police were distracted. Dismantling and transporting conference equipment into the night while others were abed, to undisclosed locations, popping up by surprise in the morning at distant venues, keeping participants on the move like the militiamen of Lexington and Concord. It was ultimately a physical triumph. A small example, I think, of the sort of sure-footed assertiveness demanded of us now. Some national conservatives want to leap into the current political fray. Others to build a new politics from the ground up. Others to stick to their studies and writing and think tankery. One thing you learn on the inside is that criticism from the outside can be empowering. We have organized this week's conference to deliberate our options deeply and, let us pray, productively. These are new conversations for new circumstances. We are no longer intellectual lone wolves baying at the moon. We are now traveling on the move, traveling with packs, some of them friendly, some of them hostile, into uncharted territory. Thank you. I have a few announcements. The first, and of course the most important one, is Wi-Fi. The network name is Hilton Honors Meeting, and the password is capital N NAT, capital C Con, NatCon 2024. Our conference schedule includes, on each of the days, lunch breaks with no official programming. But let me mention 3 informal sessions that conference participants are offering at lunchtime. First, the Heritage Foundation is hosting a luncheon discussion today with Mike Gonzalez and Katie Gorka on their new book, Next Gen Marxism, What It Is and How to Combat It, moderated by Bridget Weisenberger. It's at 12:30 in the Ohio Room. Food will be first come, first serve for 30 people. Second, Rabbi Menachem Zupnik will be offering Torah classes today and tomorrow. Rabbi Zupnik has been an active participant in our conferences all the way back to NatCon 1. Many of us have gotten to know and admire him. Today at 12:30 in the New York Room, his topic will be, "For the ways of the Lord are straight, and the righteous shall walk in them, and the rebellious shall stumble on them." Tomorrow, Tuesday, at 1 p.m. in the New York Room again, his topic will be, "Why the Obvious is No Longer Evident." I would also like to call attention to our special dinner this evening at 6:30 p.m., where the Edmund Burke Foundation will award our first Beaconsfield Prize for Distinguished Public Service and Letters. Beaconsfield is the classic British market town intimately associated with the lives and careers of Edmund Burke and Benjamin Disraeli. When we decided to establish the prize, it was obvious to everyone that its first recipients should be Ryszard Legutko, the towering Polish philosopher, politician, and institution builder whose great 2016 book, The Demon in Democracy, is one of the foundational works of national conservatism. The evening will feature a tribute by Rusty Reno, remarks by Professor Legutko, followed by an address by Senator Josh Hawley. And now, let us begin our first plenary session, starting strong with Yoram Hazony, Rachel Bovard, and Kevin Roberts. He's my boss, I better pronounce his name correctly. Please give a warm welcome to the chairman of the Edmund Burke Foundation, Yoram Hazony.